listening to Chrysalis Color, the podcast. Hello, this is Jorunn from Norway.
And Christine in Canada.
With a podcast about color analysis and how it applies to you in a practical way. We'll talk about how to use your colors to make your days brighter, your wardrobe more enjoyable, and your life easier.
We'll talk about topics that we find interesting, and we encourage you to submit your questions. A podcast listing is available at chrysaliscolor.com under the podcasts tab.
Welcome to episode 28. Today we're going to talk about men and which colors they wear and how to help the men in your life choose color with more confidence. Let's start with sharing our first experiences of men and color analysis. Christine, I'd like you to go first.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I had a few male clients actually before the connection between men and color analysis really hit home for me. I figured they would look better, and they did, and that was that. The real power of the change hit home with me, with my family, because I think I had known these people before, and I saw how much better they looked in every situation that they were in, and also the confidence they gained in their presentation. The first of these was my nephew. So he was a young man, and he came as a model during a training course. He dressed in gray and beige and jeans. We called them his fishing clothes. And he loved shopping. He bought what he liked, and he looked like a summer or maybe a spring, blonde hair, blue eyes. In the final seasons, he was between soft autumn and bright winter. And when the bright winter drapes went on him, we were all really quite speechless. And after that, he came for many courses, but I knew what to expect. And it was really a time when I saw what a dramatic difference it could make in how a person looks to other people and how they react to him. And then the second was my son, and his transformation for me. What I learned was how quickly he learned to apply his colors. And since then, I know men just get on with it, and they reap the rewards of it very quickly.
Yeah, I remember your son. He was one of the models when I trained as a color analyst. I don't know how many years ago, 100 something. I don't know. It's a long time. It seems a long time ago anyway, but yes. I remember him. And I remember, of course, I was very nervous because it was the teaching situation, and I was so confused because he came in all red and sunburned.
After I asked him not to. Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's because he's your son. Anyway, and then that draping him, going through that process, that was one of the first magic moments of color analysis. You know, when I experienced for myself for the first time, how the correct colors. Well, they didn't cancel out the sunburn because that was still there, but it's kind of smoothed it out and it brought out the clarity of the skin despite the sunburn, something kind of like that. And I've experienced this again with a young man of the same season as your son. And he has the same thing going on with his skin. He runs a lot. He runs marathons and stuff, and he's often sunburned. But when he wears his right colors, it really makes a difference in how his eyes just become even more clear, and that the skin doesn't distract from the eyes, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I completely know what you mean. And it was also a very powerful lesson in how people can be very suntanned and sunburned, and they're still exactly the same season. They react to the drapes in exactly the same way. You kind of got to be on your toes. But it was a very good teaching moment. And then for me, the third was my then husband, who always wore work clothes. I mean, it was a zero visual event of any sort. You just wouldn't react. They were work clothes. And then we discovered he was a true winter. I think you analyzed him as well.
Yep.
Those years ago, right, Jorunn? And I bought him a few shirts. Well, he was as surprised as I was at people's reactions. And this is not a person who cares too much about his appearance, but he couldn't deny the ability of color to speak on his behalf. People reacted differently to him. People who knew him well still always wears work clothes, but how about you?
Yes.
What were your early
Well,
experiences?
yes, well, I didn't see many male clients in my early days as a color analyst. It was mostly family and neighbor that I just kind of dragged in here. I
Yeah.
enlisted them in order to practice my new skills. And my dear husband was one of the first, and he is an example of how colors can make or break visual appearances. And
Mhm.
he's a true winter,
Mhm.
and it's probably like your ex-husband. He usually he doesn't really care too much, and he chooses more muted colored clothes.
Mhm.
Fishing clothes, is that what you call them? At least
Your
kind of
fishing
dips in
clothes.
fish. Yes, yes, he does a lot of fishing. But anyway, and and they do make him look a little wishy-washy. But then when he wears true winter colors, he suddenly gets, I mean, he turns into James Bond.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very interesting thing.
Yeah.
And it's been some years since his analysis. But just the other day, we were going through some clothes, and I took out one of his jackets, and he says, "No, no, no, I don't like that one." And then I said, "Why? Why don't you like it?" And he says, "The color is too bland." And I'm like, "Yes!"
Oh, okay.
Quietly celebrating. I thought, yes, he does see it. And
Yes.
it, but he, as a rule, he's not militant about the colors he chooses. He sees it, but I guess maybe a lot of the time he doesn't care. He chooses functionality. That's a nice soft sweater. I wear that, blah, blah, blah.
Yes. Yeah, it's comfortable. It's serviceable.
Right. And I've learned that they have to want to see it. That kind of goes for men and women.
Mhm.
You really can't make them care.
No.
And I guess there's a difference between the clients that come in of their own accord as opposed to the ones being enlisted as specimens or training models or something, that they don't have a motivation to learn their season of their own accord. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 fine.
I was
Oh,
just going to say, I think that, there's a lot of psychology, of course, that gets into it. And sometimes with women, they avoid the topic because the world shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't be judged. Decisions shouldn't be made based on how we look. And I respect that. My feeling is, yeah, but they are. But I don't think men have that. Men, maybe it's more, yeah, well, what if someone's going to make a decision about me based on whether how I look in this or how I look in that, not someone I want to spend time with anyway? Is that too broad of a distinction?
I don't know. It makes sense. It
Yeah.
makes sense when you say it like that. There certainly is a difference, which we will return to in another
Yes.
podcast, about how we as women perceive our bodies and the importance of our appearance
Yes.
more than men, actually. But anyway, we're going off topic. Um, the difference of women and men who come in of their own accord. I had recently a male client, and he was very, very involved in his own color journey.
Mhm.
And he was so relieved when he found his season, and that moment when it sunk in that he was allowed, to
Yes.
wear the colors that he secretly knew were so much better for him. And it was a it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for both of us.
Yeah, it's a kind of a social permission of some sort that you just don't
Yes.
have to look like everybody else. And I think it
Right.
depends where you are in life and what you want. I'm interested too because I teach color analysis these days, and often couples will come in, a man and a woman. And it's interesting to me that quite often, more often than you would think, the man gets it. Once the man sees what's going on and how different the person can look, they understand the power of the difference, and the women often don't. Men can see the truth of it, they see the difference in what their appearance says, they see the value. The woman doesn't always know that she looks different. She doesn't have a moral objection to it or an ethical objection. She just doesn't realize that she looks quite different. And yeah, and some men don't apply it to their life, and some do instantly.
Mm. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I find the women that I've seen, they've expressed that they see it. They see the difference from drape to drape. and they see the revelation of it. It's like wow and not wow and up and down, but they might fight the reality because they're so hung up in which colors they find pleasurable in a
Yes.
way.
Yes.
And so they're fighting the reality. I don't want this. I don't want this to be true. I see it's true, but I don't want it.
Yeah. Whereas the men, they don't have an emotional reaction to what the truth's going to be. It's just there it is, can't argue with it. So might as well work with the system that's in place.
True. Yes. Well, I want to return to that man that I referred to earlier. He was a true spring. And I think there's something there about in his job that he thought that he had to wear like really boring, bland colors in order to look professional.
Mm-hmm.
And then he discovered that he could look professional and very much present and very, well, yes, for lack of a better word, professional in very different colors, which were like, it was kind of new to him. And he was actually a little emotional when he discovered that the secret.
Yes.
And I think generally, I think men, they see more in paint with broader brushes or something. They see the big picture, and they're not so hung up on in details, and they do try to apply it. Well, except for my husband.
Your famous
But he has gotten better.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a man who came up with the phrase close enough is good enough. They're not wrong, but women are more connected to the intricacies of communication. I think men are more big picture about that too.
Yep, I think you're right. And we do both, you and me, find that it is very often the wife or sometimes the mother who brings the man in for color analysis. And also quite often the wife shops for him, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Good colors are good colors, no matter who buys them for you, right? And well, anyway, Christine, I'm kind of curious that do you find there's a difference between the men who have chosen to come for color analysis and the ones who've been brought in to, so to speak, by their mothers or wives or training models?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the reasons men have mentioned to me for having a color analysis, because I ask all my clients and things they've said have been, I have no idea how to choose color. Tired of having someone else know something about me that I don't. I invest a lot of money in clothes and I do want to look good. I want to, my job, I have a lot of influence on clients and I want to look the part. Sometimes too, it's news to them that there is even a system for knowing, for being able to choose. They just had no idea there was any kind of formula. We see women in transition, like divorce or silver hair. That's often a reason that women have for having a color analysis, but men don't do it for that reason, I don't think. Bottom line, they know they can look better than they do. They're often 40 to 55, but they could be 25, and they realize they look like the men in the office who are 20 years older than them, from a different era and a different social kind of demographic. So they're shy, but some step up. They're happy they did, even if it's to wear one shirt to a barbecue, one great suit, and then they see themselves in a picture, especially a group picture, and they get it.
Yes, I think that all makes sense. So another question on my mind that I'd like us to discuss here is, how do men do they experience the color analysis different from how women experience it? Do they?
I think they do. I'd like to hear what you say about this too. I think they are less detail focused. They see the big picture. Women they'll zero in on a feature, a wrinkle, the definition of a feature, and they just really zero in on this to the exclusion of both the big picture and all the other small features. Men, I look better here. Next. That's it. This one or this one, that one. Okay, done. Next. Then it moves along very fast. Do you find that?
Yes, exactly. It's like you described it just like that. It's like the men, they can almost do their own analysis. It's just I just provide the
Yes.
drape. And
Yes.
then once I've explained to them how it works and I whip
Yes.
the drapes back and forth and tell them what we're looking for, they're like more efficient, or they
Yeah.
don't overthink it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's exactly like you say, yeah, this one's better. Next.
Yeah.
But thinking of it from our perspective as the analyzer, Christine,
Yeah.
do you find that different, analyzing men?
Um, no, I'm still back on the last topic. It's kind of like you tell them the rules of the game and then they want to win. And I don't, that, but women are interested. It's like when children play games, boys want to win and girls they're interested in the relationships and the interconnections. It's a bit like that. But in terms of the analysis process, no, I don't find the skin and the drapes, the eyes and the drapes, the hair and the drapes, they don't behave or react differently. With students, it takes a little time to get used to men because, well, they have facial hair, for one thing. And they have, I think, smaller eyes. Some men have big eyes, but generally men have smaller eyes in their face, beards, eyebrows, but you just learn how to use them. They still react to the drape. They still give good information.
It's kind of like different Caucasians version versus colored,
Yes,
other colored skin. We get a lot of questions about that, and it's the same thing. Skin is skin,
it's true.
and the
You think it should
reactions.
make a difference, but it doesn't make a difference.
No, it doesn't. And one thing that I'm thinking of sometimes is that the men, they don't usually use makeup to alleviate
Yes.
the effect of bad color choices in color. And that's kind of a blessing for them. And because I'm thinking, the woman, she wears the wrong colors, and then she colors her hair to match the colors, and then she slaps on the wrong makeup to adjust for the whatever the hair color does. And then away we go, and it's kind of like a vicious circle.
Oh, it is so true. The hair color industry is the same. Imagine if all the men in the world started doing to their hair what the women who live in the same country did. I mean, it would be crazy, right?
Mm.
But women do all this color correcting and color enhancing, and you're fine. But makeup, yeah, it's one more variable to deal with. And women have been taught that they can use makeup to correct wearing, I mean, gosh, any color in
Mm.
clothing or hair, and they're putting green and all this stuff on their face to solve problems they don't actually have. Just change your shirt, Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the men, they don't have that. And
No.
they have one problem, and that can be fixed. It's
Mhm.
like they're not wearing their season's colors, and we can fix that. Now the women, they have like a cascade, a domino, a center series of domino. How do you call them? The little pieces.
Dominoes,
They
yeah.
just kind of topple over,
So
and each one affects all the others, and that kind of slows it down. And the women, they more than the men, they need to reset and then build it back up from zero, ground zero. And the men, they're lucky because they start off closer to home.
mhm.
And then again, also they don't usually care so much about style, because the women's like, oh, I found something in my color, and now I have to worry about if it's in my style. Men don't. They have, I don't know, fewer style issues.
Well, they do. And to be fair to women too, um, every one of the things, I mean, I wear makeup, I used to color my hair. Everything that you add, you almost have to relearn it. Jewelry
Mhm.
is a topic of its own. Makeup
Mhm.
is most certainly a topic of its own. It's so much easier when you know your season, but makeup has to look like skin. It doesn't sit on skin like clothes or jewelry. So that's a different, hair, a whole different topic.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, for men, it's just get the clothes right and you're good to go. I think men too, they trust themselves more than women. They'll wing it. They don't need to be perfect. They don't doubt their decisions. They are I think they're less affected by the opinions of others. Whereas a woman, she might doubt the perfect blouse because it looked good, she felt good, and then someone on Facebook said it was wrong. So maybe for women, they need their choices to be validated. Is that fair to say?
I think that would be fair to say, yes, yes, to a certain extent. And um, men, they also trust their partners a lot,
Yes.
because, well, Exhibit A, the wives buy clothes for their men.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a thing. But very few women would let a man shop for them. I wouldn't let
Oh,
my
you're
husband shop
right.
for me. God, no.
I would be very interested, and the same with my kids, the same with anyone. I'm very interested in how I am perceived through other people's eyes. But yeah, you're right. I wouldn't let a man shop for me. No. I'd be interested in what they would try to create, though.
True. Come to think of it, I don't think I'd like another woman to shop for me either. I'm such a control freak. I want to pick my own clothes.
Men don't, they may not live in a world where appearance counts for as much either. Not sure
True.
if, I don't know if I agree with that. Because I think it counts for a lot with men, but do you
I
think it
don't
counts
agree
for
with
more with
you.
women? Do you?
No, I don't agree with you, because look
Okay.
at politicians or anyone.
Yeah.
Well, at least in Norway, it's like if a female politician shows up in a dress, they're all over the media discussing her
Yeah.
dress. The man, I mean, he can have a slouchy posture and hair growing out of his nose, and a shirt that's his stomach hangs over his pants, and whatever. And there's never anything in the papers about how the male politician
Mm.
dresses.
Hmm.
So I think men can get away with not caring about their appearance and be intelligent and smart and powerful, and but women, yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I don't agree with that.
I agree with you. As I think about it, women live in a kind of never good enough world.
Yep.
You have to keep refreshing and reinventing yourself and meeting
Yep.
this tremendously double standard.
Mhm.
And yet you put one foot wrong, you take a risk, and and I do
Mhm.
it too, right? Videos on YouTube and so on. I get it. It's easy to criticize.
But maybe there's something with, well, there's, of course, it's society. The male fashion changes very little when you think
Yes,
about formal business clothing for men. I mean, you have a blazer, you have a shirt, you have slacks, that you're good for 10 years. I mean, there's the lapels are a bit wider and
sure,
narrower, but it doesn't show as much if a man is out of date. But
sure.
a woman turns up in fashionable things from 5 years ago, it's more visible,
That's very true.
but
Yeah.
gets outdated much faster.
Yes. Yeah. Very true.
Anyway, totally different one, but oh, we're having so much fun with it. Um, let's go on to, how do we see men different or
After,
differently? How do they change after they wear their colors?
well, I mean, they look so much freaking better than the schlump who walked in his fashion clothes. I
Yeah.
find most guys, it's just generic. They're wearing whatever safe thing they were given in the clothing store, or they're wearing someone else's generic. It makes no sense for the man wearing it. It wouldn't speed up my heartbeat one bit. They all kind of look the same. It's this kind of cream of wheat. And for me, safe is boring on a man at any age. I kind of just registered, yeah, man presence over there on the left. And I don't direct much attention their way until they speak. Nothing goes with anything. The glasses don't go with the skin. The suit doesn't go with the glasses. The shirt doesn't go with the suit. You can't talk about the shoes. Or he's picking what he saw Daniel Craig wore in the last James Bond movie, but it doesn't suit him.
Yeah. And then when we see them in their colors and they appear in charge and in control, it's a whole different story. And we both agree, nothing says wishy-washy like its shirt in the wrong color.
You know when I experienced this? Well, we all do in the last year. It's when that Zoom screen
Mm.
opens. You know, you see the face, like you speak to a few businesses and so on, and the screen can open and you think, wow, hi, I want to talk to you. I want to get to know you. I want to tell you about me and see what we can do together. Whereas when you see this kind of safe guy, it just speaks to me of a kind of a cluelessness, you know, and I know where it's coming from and I can overcome it. And I understand that too much focus or importance on impression is not always constructive, but let's just say my first impression is to step back, not towards. Jorunn,
Mm.
let's look at the main season groups and steps that those men could take to make a real improvement. You know, let's leave our listeners with some takeaways.
Good idea.
Oh, so let's start with Summer. You think he's a Summer, and you maybe have seen his face can get sort of blotchy red from too intense color. His eye color will get a bit washed out. These incredibly beautiful eyes that women love for this tranquility, and they lose those dreamy qualities. They look a little tired, they look a little bloodshot or irritated. And first thing I would say is get rid of black, get rid of ink navy blue, I guess, and get rid of red, bright red. Buy a pink shirt. It is gorgeous. And while you're at the store, pick up a blue violet shirt. It's also pretty gorgeous.
Very good. And the second thing is to get him some few items in the same color family that can be worn together. Summers do great in that. Like for greens, a shirt with narrow green stripes worn with a dark bottle green trousers, and then top that off with a pine green bomber jacket, or blues, like that blue violet shirt that you mentioned. Get a blue sweater to go with it, and blue jeans.
Yeah, it feels like it's somehow wouldn't be enough or wouldn't be sharp enough. It looks great. Also, buy a few prints. Stripes are fine, but flowers can be gorgeous because these are pastel colors and they're very belonging together. Whatever feels right to the man. In a design where the colors blend together from 15 feet away or so. Another thing comes to mind, which is that these are watercolors, swirly, soft colors. And so it looks really good when the colors drift into one another, because this is how he's already colored, right? But to get that look, he's got to own a few colors. If all his shirts are blue, he's not going to be able to do this so much. So without planning each look, start by just going out there to expand his closet. I mean, a winter man wouldn't need a huge amount of variety of colors in his basics. I think a summer man would benefit from having a lot of choices. And then once you have a fair number of choices to work with, now start pairing them. So a violet shirt with a blue jacket, a pastel pink shirt with light sand colored jeans. The combinations happen by themselves when you've got the stuff to combine. A pearl white shirt and a sage green tie. When you got it, the looks just come together by themselves, I think. What about a spring? Let's see, if he's a spring man, this man's energy is damped down by generic colors. By generic, I mean, here where I live anyway, guy colors, dusty blue, soft gray, dusty burgundy, and dusty green. Have I missed any of them? All pretty dark.
I hear dusty anyway.
Yeah. I don't know what are generic man colors in Norway?
Dusty,
blue,
dusty
green.
navy, bland, blue, a lot of blues, dusty blues.
Fair bit of it.
Gray, sandy, beigey, gray.
Yeah, kind of like say nothing, do nothing, cream of wheat. On some men, those dusty colors are good, but even there, it can be a little more exciting than that. They just, so on a spring man, they just look way too domesticated. These men are socially charming. They are incredibly socially capable, competent. And when you put them in their colors, the glow comes back. They spark. It's like somebody plugged them in. You know? The lights go on in their eyes and behind their face. They liven up. They engage with people. They wink and they start telling jokes. They allow themselves to be the social, funny people that they are and that they love to be.
Yes, such nice people. Anyway, for the bullet points for spring men, I would like to say that the first would be that his jeans should be the dullest colored item that he owns.
Yes.
And then it should be brighter from there.
Yeah, jeans are, they don't have to be perfect as long as they have a fair bit of pigment, because everyone sees jeans as neutral, pretty much anyway. And then, so now we're starting to make clothes. Shirts, ties, sweaters. They're the colors of you'd put a parasol in a tropical drink, like pina colada yellow, pineapple yellow, tequila sunrise red, fruit punch colors. They're bright, they're warm. They're energetic colors. They have lots of vitality. They're as charming as the man is.
Yep. And don't forget, prints and patterns are great on springs, women and men. I can't think of any man who looks better in a Hawaii shirt. Well, you don't have to go that wild, but think prints in general. Many colors at one time. It's very good for spring men.
Yeah, so I guess he's like the summer man. Go get some color variety. The color variety is almost essential here. And the black formal suit, just push it to the back of the closet. Maybe inspire him to get a bright kind of medium dark blue, or maybe even a beer brown suit instead. Really looks a lot better.
So moving on to autumn men, they usually dress close to their colors naturally, but they're often stuck in a rut choosing clothes that are too tame, or what was the word? Domesticated?
Yeah.
They do need upgrading into a stronger version of themselves. And but being autumn people, they probably instinctively avoid bold color, and that helps. But it's useful to learn the difference between bold as in crayon or bold as spicy. And for autumn men, we are going for spicy. So if you think he is an autumn man, make him upgrade from tan and beige to cayenne and curry. And Christine, you mentioned Navajo. Is Navajo a color?
No, no, Navajo is kind of like Santa Fe, New Mexico, Grand Canyon, none of which are crayon colors, but they all have brightness. Right. They all have heat. Compared with Pina Colada, the colors aren't creamy. They're, well, spicy, savory. A shirt or a tie in Bloody Mary red, with the pepper around the top. Colors of olive groves and wine cellars.
I'm starting to like this autumn man here.
Yeah. Well, they do wear, they're okay in dusty burgundy. The dusty part's okay, but it's all too cool. And then the other thing he's doing is wearing tan and beige and tan. And there is a world of color for these folks that is just glorious. Other thing that I think is a trick, works maybe better for autumns, well, men and women, than most seasons, is look at your color palette for whatever season you are and find the colors in it that are similar to the colors you see in the hair and the eyes. So if you see a certain brown in the hair, find the most similar version in the color palette and use it for buying basics, because they look so connected. And you get the rich vitality, you'll get the rich rusts and those beautiful colors. So everything isn't camel and camel. Their hair is often warmer and darker and more interesting than that.
Yes. And as a general rule for autumn men, think Marlboro man handsome, not James Bond handsome. That's
Mhm.
kind of my rule of thumb when picking outfits. That the Marlboro man has clothes in rich and spicy natural colors and rough textiles and colors. And both of those men have like a dangerous handsomeness, but the Marlboro man has like a rusty, rustique cowboy outdoor adventurer about him. And I'm not saying that you should send him to a party or a reception in cowboy boots, but it's like the idea of not looking like Formula One handsome.
Yes. And part of that comes from colors and part of it comes from textures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a little flannel nap or a little roughness corduroy, it
Mm-hmm.
looks really good.
Yes,
And
that distressed leather. Mm.
yeah, especially on men. Now I'm interested in you would if you'd agree with this because autumn women, I could see an autumn woman easily in a gorgeous a satin leopard print or tiger print shirt. I'd have no trouble seeing an autumn woman in a smooth or shiny textile if it's in her color. Whereas men, I really like them better in tapestry, wool, corduroy, denim, those fabrics that have more
Mhm.
weight and substance. And I don't know if it's
Mhm.
because women, we often have maybe smoother hair, smoother skin, shinier cosmetics. And so shine in clothes makes more sense.
Yeah,
Whereas
I
men
think
have textured
mm,
skin, they have beards. What do you think about that?
I think you're right because as you were describing it, I was thinking that the women are smoother. The skin is smoother as a general rule. So then you could go much more smooth for an autumn woman. And then
Hmm.
you could pair that silk blouse with a tweed jacket or
Hmm.
something, and she could have suede boots or a
Hmm.
suede handbag. But it wouldn't bother me at all, especially if it's in those lovely, lovely autumn
Yeah,
prints.
I
Like a
think so. I
lovely.
agree with you about texture variation. That makes a difference. And a man in a dark copper or rust tie with some shine in it,
Mm.
great.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
they want to
yes,
wear a
yes.
large area. Whereas
Right.
a winter man, I could see the guy in a shiny suit.
I
It
was
looks more
just
normal.
thinking, I can't picture an autumn man in a rusty satin suit, but I could
Mhm.
see a winter man in a very kind of a very polished black suit.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's more normal. And
Mm.
so a lot of this, I mean, it kind of happens by itself when you wear your colors. And men's clothing is these colors. It's usually offered in textiles with some texture, but interesting
Right.
thing to think about. What about
Mm.
winter? Um, I
Yep.
think he's a, sorry, were you going to say
Oh,
something?
yeah. I'm on to winter in
Okay.
my head.
All right. If you think he's a winter, so winter men in wrong color, what do they look like? They look sunburned and gray with
Hmm.
grayer hair than they have and puffy eyelids or bags under their eyes.
Gray
And
bags
then,
under their eyes.
yeah, you've seen this. Yeah, I have to.
Mhm.
Then they put on a black turtleneck. And then all of a sudden you notice they have eyes. You think, where have you been here all this time? Why am I
Mhm.
just seeing you now? This is always my experience with men
Yep.
because they can disappear themselves. You don't even know they're there. There's a voice, but there's no particular body. And boy, in their colors, their physical presence is it's hard to beat. So what's your first tip for a man?
Yes, the first bullet point in my list is that avoid anything grayish unless it's actually gray.
Yeah.
I mean, they can wear gray, but it has to be pure, pure gray. And none of their other colors should have any kind of gray tinge to them.
Yep. That's a pretty easy one to follow too, I think.
Mm.
Um, I would think about where colors and prints that you could make out at 200 feet. Like a winter color, it wouldn't blend into any landscape unless you're wearing white and it's a snow landscape or clear blue sky kind of picture. So if you are in a mall, you see a crowd of people, looking, you're on a beach, you see a number of people in front of you, you know from a distance what color that item is. It's not compromising color. I guess what you said, Jorunn, no gray or dusty tones. This is straight color pigment. Whatever it is, turquoise, green, it is straight up color.
And straight color pigment brings me to my next bullet point, which is primary colors. With winters, you just can't go wrong if you pick pure primary colors: fire engine red, lemon yellow, pure colors. Like, in fact, one of my stepsons, he's a true winter. He just recently he showed up in a clear yellow kind of t-shirt that has a color. What do you call those in English?
A polo shirt?
No. Yeah, is that a polo shirt? It has a little bit of some two buttons and a color. Yeah. And it was like a lemon yellow clear. And his wife had bought it for him, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And he looked smashing.
Did he know he looked smashing? Did he feel good, or was he wearing it?
Yeah, she told him. She told him, and he believed her.
Good. Yeah. Another thing for winters, one color at a time, plus black, white, or gray. Spring, lots of colors together. Winter, less colors together. So they're both wearing pretty bright color, but spring, it's opposite in how they use color. Spring, lots of them, just keep piling them on. It looks great. Winter, it's very much a less is more kind of picture. So you've got the pine green. He's wearing a polo, let's say. It's dark pine green, one black stripe, one white stripe. For winters, the power is in the simplicity.
Yep. I just wanted to return. You said this thing about making out a color from a distance. That applies to pattern as well. This I'm picturing in my mind this dark pine green polo with one black. You could, from 200 meters or whatever off, you could see that pattern. The pattern wouldn't blend, right?
100% true. You know where that thought came to me was, in fact, it's July as we record this, and I was sitting on a beach, and there are people around, and they're 200 feet away, and you can't really see anybody what they're wearing, but there was this beach bag, and it had navy blue and white stripes. Well, you could see that. You could see the size, the shape. You knew what the colors were. You couldn't make out any other color in this group of people except that beach bag. And that's that effect of the power of simple use of color and strong color. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So to conclude, it's such an easy way to get dressed when you got your season figured out. It will be kind of like the clothing equivalent of paint by numbers, which appeals to men, I know. So I want to shoot in a little, how do you say it? A commercial?
Yes.
If you're in the European community, in the EU, and you or your man wants a PCA, I will be offering a limited number of appointments in London. Perhaps late fall this year, or pending COVID restrictions, perhaps I'll have to push it to next year, but there is a link on my website where you can sign up for a waiting list for that.
You bet. And we'll put the link for your website in our show notes.
Absolutely.
And also, speaking of, I know you produce a lot of information for people. If anyone's on LinkedIn, have a look at Jorunn's profile page, because Jorunn and I do a whole series of videos for each season with tips and priorities. And I mean, these are what, Jorunn, 8-10 minutes long. And in each one, we talk about how women put the look together, but we also do an entire panel and conversation about how men put the look together. And we pay very close attention to whatever advice we give could really be applied to men or women, meaning we don't talk endlessly about makeup or hair color. These are just concepts that would apply to any person of that season and how to use color. And I think, well, have we completed 9 of them? Jorunn, we're just about to record.
Well, we're about to do the 9th, if I'm not wrong, but
yeah, 9, 10, yeah, we're about to do the 9th or 10th. So you can see complete accessorized looks for each season. And that's on Jorunn's LinkedIn profile page that we will put in the show notes. And one last thing from me is that I have Pinterest boards which show clothing in current retail for the 12 seasons. And I have just pinned a whole series of men's summer shirts for the 12 seasons. So maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe more items in each season. And if that's of interest to people, the link for the Pinterest boards will be in the show notes as well. So thank you, Jorunn, for your time today. I enjoyed our conversation. I always do. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.